Well, hello everyone. This is Fadi, and I want to welcome you back to a continuation of this fascinating video series with our dear brother Joel Richardson. We've been talking about really the relevancy of the current affairs in the Middle East, geopolitically speaking, and how they tie into biblical prophecies. Last time, Joel began to talk about prophecies in Daniel 11, specifically the king of the north. And today, most likely, he will probably continue his discussions among many other things. So Joel, welcome back, brother. And it's always a blessing to have you here. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you, and I'll let you take us from here.
All right. So yeah, in the last session, we were talking about the prophecy of Daniel chapter 11 and all of the changes taking place throughout the Middle East. Obviously, at the time of this recording, President Trump has not been sworn in yet. We've not had the inauguration, but hopefully that will happen and go smoothly. We've got all these drones and these orbs, and everyone's trying to figure out what's going on. That's fascinating. But hopefully the president will be sworn in. And when he is, obviously, there will be a mad dash to return to the diplomatic efforts that he started with his first term with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and the Abrahamic Accords. So the Abrahamic Accords obviously were a profound step forward in Middle Eastern diplomacy. Obviously, we had, back in the day with Sadat, we had Egypt entered into a peace treaty with Israel, and then later with the Oslo Accords, we had Jordan enter into a peace treaty with Israel. But under President Trump, his last administration, we had the Abrahamic Accords. So we saw the UAE, we saw Morocco, we saw Sudan, Bahrain, all join the Abrahamic Accords and enter into much more friendly relations with Israel, both economically and diplomatically. Now, much of this obviously is because of the looming threat of Iran throughout the region. People are wanting, and not just economically, but also security-wise. So many of these Arab Muslim nations are actually allying with Israel in order to form sort of an alliance against Iran. And for what it's worth, Israel has every legitimate right to enter into friendly diplomatic relations with its neighbors. I mean, Israel should do that just like any other nation in the world. Okay, so now President Trump gets in. They're going to push for this. Now, obviously, there's already been a lot of talk. And this would be a massive, massive tectonic regional shift. But all of the talk has revolved around the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, entering into normalized relations with Israel. Obviously October 7th and the October 7th war and the Palestinian issue has sort of been a big factor in all of that sort of held it up. But I have no question that once President Trump gets back in, there is going to be a very strong push to see Saudi Arabia join the Abrahamic Accords. Now, the question that a lot of prophecy watchers are asking is this the peace treaty? Is this the peace treaty of Daniel chapter 9 that so many prophecy watchers have been looking to? Because the peace treaty with the Antichrist, if you will, that's a 7-year security alliance or a peace treaty or some type of an agreement. That has been the sign that many prophecy watchers have been looking to as the sign that begins the final 7 years before the return of Jesus. And, it's actually possible that an expansion of the Abrahamic Accords could be that very peace treaty. It's possible. But there's something I want to reference that probably a lot of your listeners, especially Muslim background believers, are familiar with. Most non-Muslims are not familiar with. But this is something in the history of Islam called the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah. And so this is the story when Muhammad this was early on in Muhammad's career. He had about 1,200, there were about 1,200 Muslims at the time. Right. And he wanted to make Hajj. He wanted to make pilgrimage to Mecca. And he actually prophesied to his people that he would do so. But on the way, he was stopped by the Qurayshis. And he was kind of abused, sort of made fun of in front of his men and this sort of thing. And so they were upset. They were like, the Qurayshis just disrespected you and so forth. And Muhammad actually entered into an agreement with the Qurayshis, and this became known as the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah. So he was on his way to make pilgrimage. And the Qurayshi said, no, you're not going to make pilgrimage this year. And they said, you can come back next year and do so. They said, but we're going to enter into a treaty with you, a peace treaty for 2 years. Actually, it was supposed to be for 10 years, but it only lasted 2 years. And what they said, it was a very lopsided agreement. They said, if any of your men, the Muslims, want to leave Islam and come back to the Qurayshis, you have to let them do so. But if any of our men want to leave the Qurayshis and become a Muslim, you have to reject them and send them back. So it was a very lopsided agreement, but the Qurayshis, they were the most powerful tribe throughout the whole region at the time. They agreed to have a ceasefire with Muhammad. So Muhammad realized, I can start essentially defeating all of these other minority groups like the Jews, and the Qurayshis aren't going to bother me. So Muhammad entered into this treaty, but about 2 years in, because that's exactly what he did. He told his men, he told his Muslim followers, he goes, look, I did say we're going to make Hajj. He said, but did I say this year? So he kind of moved the target, and they were like, oh, which is what, those who prophesy and don't get the prophecies right always do. They change the target. But the point was this. After this point, Muhammad started raiding various Jewish villages, and he claimed to have had a revelation whereby he said, if any Muslims join me from this point forward, you get this massive percentage of the plunder, the booty, and the spoil. So as I started raiding these Jewish villages, it was a cash cow for anyone that wanted to join them. And so within just 2 years, they grew from about 1,200 Muslims to about 10,000 men. And they became stronger than the Qurayshis. Muhammad then broke the treaty and came back to Mecca, and of course, had the historical defeat of the Qurayshis. It was a tremendous military victory. But the point is this: Muhammad is the perfect example and model for all Muslims to follow. And one of his greatest military victories was entering into a fake treaty, a treaty that, he made for 10 years, but he never intended to keep it for 10 years. Once he became powerful, he broke it. So you can see how even within Islamic theology and practice, there is room for making a peace treaty with your enemies without having the long-term intentions of keeping that. I think it's very likely that the coming peace treaty spoken of in Daniel 9 could be, I say could be, an expansion of a reiteration of the Abrahamic Accords. And we could see multiple nations like Saudi Arabia join, but eventually, and we could see an Antichrist figure support this and get behind it. It could be a massive celebrated regional peace. But the Bible teaches that after a period, this treaty will be broken. And 3.5 years in, the Antichrist will break the treaty and invade the land of Israel and desecrate the temple and this sort of thing. So in so many ways, when you look at what's unfolding right now in the Middle East, when you look at Islamic theology, practice, you go, yeah, I can absolutely see what Daniel chapter 9, Daniel chapter 11, what the biblical prophets describe. I can actually see that unfolding in our day. And so am I saying this is that? Absolutely no. But I am saying things are coming into alignment, and we absolutely should be paying attention. This is the fulfillment of literally thousands of years of expectation, and we're those that are living to get to see these things coming into focus.
Amen. And I love what you always say about prophecy, that it's a pattern, that you have to pay attention to it as a pattern. And people once answered like immediately, and it doesn't. I bet you Ezekiel was hoping it will happen in his lifetime too. And the people in his days would have thought about it the same way. But the Bible is filled with these patterns, and Matthew, for instance, gave us an indication that some of those patterns are now fulfilled in the person of Christ, for instance, when he was talking about this is to fulfill, this is to fulfill. Same thing with biblical prophecy, especially when it's geopolitical in nature. People wrote books about these things and tried their best, and some were mocked because, basically, whether they mention something that goes against the mainstream interpretation, you're always going to be marginalized, or people are going to try to find excuses why you're wrong and they're right. So all that to say, brother, is that this is fascinating, and I'm hoping that our audience will be equipped by this knowledge and be blessed by the things that you'll be sharing with us. What's next on the agenda for next time?
I think sticking with these themes, we're going to look at Isaiah 14 and the death of Yahya Sinwar and the October 7th War, and how some of those events have also, in my eyes, partially fulfilled biblical prophecy, or they're pointing to the soon coming ultimate fulfillment of biblical prophecy.
Wonderful. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And hopefully you are enjoying this video series. Be sure to like it. Be sure to share it with others. Be sure to subscribe, not just to our channel, but also to Joel's channel, and follow his work as well. Until next time, have a blessed day, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. And ring the bell so you will be notified when we release new content. Our mission is to reach Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ and help Christians engage with their Muslim neighbors. If you want to join us in this life-changing work, please support us on patreon.com/CIRA International, or just click on the link below.